Jason had always been an ordinary man. He lived in a small, quiet apartment, worked as a mechanic, and kept to himself most of the time. There was nothing remarkable about him. He wasn't rich, nor was he famous. He simply worked hard, came home, and enjoyed a peaceful life. But on this particular night, things were about to change, and in a way he could never have imagined. The day had been long, filled with grease, oil, and endless repairs. By the time evening came, Jason was more than ready for rest. He didn't bother with pajamas. After a hot shower to wash away the day's fatigue, he crawled into his bed, naked, and pulled the covers up, hoping for a good night's sleep. The room was quiet, the air cooled against his skin, and the city outside was peaceful. As he closed his eyes, Jason felt the tension in his muscles ease. He had no idea that this would be the last night he would sleep so peacefully. The moment he fell asleep, something strange began to happen. The first sign that things were different came in his dreams. They weren't like the usual dreams Jason had, vivid, strange, and filled with images of swirling lights and distant voices. He could hear words, but none of them made sense. His mind tried to grasp the meaning, but it was like listening to a language he had never heard before. The voices felt close, yet far away, like they were coming from another world. When Jason woke up, he felt a strange weight in the air. The morning light streamed through his window, but it wasn't the same light he was used to. It seemed brighter, yet somehow softer. His eyes blinked open, and for a moment he couldn't quite place where he was. The room felt off wrong. Somehow he tried to move, but his body felt heavy. His mind was foggy, still caught in the remnants of his bizarre dream. Slowly he stood up, feeling the unfamiliar coldness of the floor beneath his bare feet. Around, Jason's breath caught in his throat. The walls of his bedroom were gone. Instead, he was in a vast, open space. Towering structures surrounded him, their designs unlike anything Jason had ever seen. They seemed both advanced and ancient, as if they had been built by a civilization far beyond anything on Earth. The air was thin, and the sky above was a strange shade of violet, unlike the blue he was accustomed to. Jason froze. He looked around, his heart racing. His apartment, his bed, everything he knew was gone. This wasn't his home anymore. Panic began to rise in his chest, but before he could fully comprehend what was happening, a soft voice broke through his thoughts. "Are you awake now?" Jason spun around, his eyes wide with shock. Standing in front of him was a woman, a tall, ethereal figure. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue glow, and her hair floated as if suspended by some unseen force. Her eyes were bright, glowing with an intensity that made Jason's heart race even more. Who are you?" Jason stammered, his voice shaky. The woman smiled gently, her expression calm, but full of mystery. "I am Lyra, from a world far beyond yours. You, Jason, are here for a reason." Jason's mind struggled to catch up. He had so many questions, but none of them seemed to make sense in the face of the bizarre situation. "I don't understand. What is this place? Where am I?" Lyra nodded, as if expecting his confusion. "You are no longer on Earth, Jason. You have been brought to a world where you are needed." Jason blinked in disbelief. "This is some kind of joke, right? I'm dreaming, or I'm still asleep?" "I wish it were a dream," Lyra said softly, "but this is very real. You are the one who has been chosen." Jason's head spun. He looked around again, but it was still the same alien structures, strange air, and that impossible sky. He tried to think, to make sense of it all, but the words didn't seem to fit. "Chosen for what?" he managed to ask. "For a purpose." "Jason, a purpose that has been foretold for centuries," Lyra replied. She stepped closer to him, her glowing eyes never leaving his. "You were brought here to fulfill an ancient prophecy. You are the one who can save us." "Save you? From what?" Jason's voice was barely a whisper now. He felt like he was suffocating in this new reality. Lyra didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked past him, her expression distant. "Our world is in danger. Great war is coming, and only you can lead us to victory." But it's not just about war. It's about saving everything: our people, our home, our future. And you, Jason, are the one we've been waiting for. Jason's mind reeled. The words felt heavy, like they were pressing against his skull. He wanted to laugh, to tell her she had the wrong person. But the sincerity in her eyes stopped him. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a joke. This can't be real, he said weakly, shaking his head. I'm just a mechanic. I'm not some hero. I don't even know what you're talking about. Lyra's gaze softened, and she took a step closer. I know this is hard to believe, but you have been chosen because you are different. You are the key, Jason, the one who will help us break free from the curse that has bound us for so long. Jason looked at her, his body frozen in shock. There was no denying the truth in her eyes, even if his mind refused to accept it. Whatever this was, it was happening. And for better or worse, he was a part of it now. Jason couldn't believe his ears. The words Lyra spoke still echoed in his mind. He looked around at the alien structures, the violet sky, and the strange world that seemed so far from his own. This couldn't be real. It just couldn't. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mechanic, he muttered to himself, shaking his head as he tried to make sense of everything. But the more he tried to deny it, the more the situation felt real. There was nothing familiar here, no comforting sounds of city traffic or the soft hum of his refrigerator. Just silence, broken only by the soft rustling of the wind through the alien plants around him. Lyra seemed to understand his disbelief. She stepped closer, her movements graceful and fluid. Her soft, glowing eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him feel both uncomfortable and curious. I know this is hard, Jason, she said gently, but there is no going back. You're here now, and you have a role to play. Jason took a step back, his eyes searching for anything familiar. Anything that might make this whole situation feel less impossible. But nothing came. He was stranded in a place that was nothing like Earth. The sun above was setting now, casting strange hues of orange and purple across the landscape. Please, just tell me what you mean by a prophecy, Jason asked, his voice cracking slightly. What do you want from me? I don't even know how I got here. Lyra took a deep breath. The prophecy was passed down through generations on my world, she explained. It speaks of a human who would arrive when our planet's future was in jeopardy. A human who would help us lead and unite the forces necessary to win the coming war. That human is you. Jason ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I'm nobody special, he protested. I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about fighting or leading anyone. Lyra's expression softened. You're more than just a mechanic, Jason. You have a unique ability, one that has been awakened by your arrival here. Your mind, your body, it's adapting. You'll see. Jason didn't know what to say. He felt so out of place. He was used to greasy engines and fixing car parts, not being some kind of savior to an entire planet. The whole idea seemed absurd. So what now? What am I supposed to do? He asked, hoping for some kind of answer that made sense. You'll learn, Lyra said with a quiet confidence. The first step is to understand your new reality.
Oh.
This planet is not like Earth. You're not just a guest here, you're a part of something much bigger. And you'll need to prepare for what's coming. Jason glanced at her, trying to process everything she had said. He had no idea what kind of preparation she was talking about. He wasn't ready for this. He wasn't ready for any of it. But before he could ask more questions, there was a sudden movement nearby. The air shimmered for a moment, and then another figure appeared. Jason tensed, instinctively stepping back. But when the figure came into focus, he was taken aback. The man. Standing before them was tall and broad-shouldered, his skin a deep shade of green. His armor gleamed in the soft light, and his eyes were fierce, though there was a hint of respect in them as they met Jason's gaze. This is Commander Drac, Lyra said, gesturing to the alien soldier. He's here to help guide you through the next phase of your training. Jason blinked, still trying to wrap his mind around everything. Training? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Drac stepped forward, his voice deep and commanding. The first step, human, is survival, he said. You are not just on a strange planet. You are in the middle of a war, and the enemy is ruthless. If you wish to help our people, you must first learn to fight. Jason's stomach twisted. Fight. I don't even know how to hold a weapon. Lyra smiled gently, her glowing eyes full of understanding. You'll learn, Jason. We'll teach you. You've already shown you can adapt to this world. With the right training, you'll become the leader we need. Jason didn't know what to say. He had been thrown into this foreign world with no preparation, no warning, and now they were asking him to fight. It was too much. He wanted to go home, to wake up from this nightmare, but there was something in Lyra's eyes that made him hesitate. She wasn't asking him to fight for no reason. She was asking him because she believed in him, for the first time since he arrived. Jason felt something stir within him, a flicker of hope mixed with fear. Maybe he could do this. Maybe he wasn't as ordinary as he thought. I'll try, Jason finally said, his voice steadying as he spoke. But I don't know how much help I'll be. Drac grinned. You don't need to know everything right away. We'll start small. Lyra nodded. You'll start with the basics: combat, strategy, and learning to use the resources this world offers. You'll need to understand the land, the technology, and the people if you're going to lead them. Jason looked at Drek, then back. To Lyra, it all sounded overwhelming, but somehow, something in his gut told him he had no choice but to try. The weight of responsibility settled onto his shoulders like a heavy cloak. This isn't just about you anymore, Lyra said softly. It's about all of us. This planet, our people, everything is at stake, and you are the key to saving it. Jason nodded slowly, his mind still reeling. But he knew one thing for sure. He was no longer just a mechanic from Earth. He was part of something much bigger now, and somehow he had to rise to the challenge. The next few days were a blur for Jason. Lyra and Commander Drac kept him busy, training him to understand the alien world and preparing him for what lay ahead. But no matter how much he learned, the one question that haunted him the most remained unanswered. Why was he here? Jason had always thought of himself as just an average guy, someone who worked on cars and kept to himself. But now here he was, on a distant planet, being told he was the key to saving an entire civilization. It didn't make sense. One afternoon, after a long session of physical training with Drac, Jason found himself alone in a quiet, open area. The alien sky stretched above him, and he took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. Lyra had said. He was chosen by a prophecy. But what did that really mean? He had been told that a human would come to their world and lead them through their darkest hour. But why him? Why not someone else? Is it really just a coincidence that he had been brought here? As he stood lost in thought, Lyra appeared beside him, her glowing eyes watching him with quiet understanding. You're thinking about the prophecy, aren't you? She asked gently. Jason looked at her, his brow furrowed. I don't understand, he said. How could I be the one chosen? I'm not special. I'm not a warrior or a leader. I'm just a mechanic. Lyra smiled softly, as if she had expected this question. It's not about being special, Jason. The prophecy doesn't say you need to be a hero. It says that a human will come when we need them most. And that human will have the power to unite us, to give us the strength we need to win this war. Jason shook his head, still struggling to grasp the situation. But how? I don't have any powers. I'm just a regular person. You may not have powers like the warriors of my world, Lyra explained. But you have something that they don't. You have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to connect with people. You have the heart of a leader, even if you don't see it yet. Jason felt a weight in his chest at her words. Could it really be true? Was he somehow meant to lead these people? He couldn't deny that something inside him was changing. The more time he spent here, the more connected he felt to this world. The air, the people, the land, it all seemed to call to him, but that still didn't explain why him. Why now? Lyra seemed to sense his inner turmoil. She reached out and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. Jason, the prophecy is not about fate alone. It's about choice. You've been given the chance to decide. Will you help us, or will you turn away? Jason felt the weight of her words settle deep inside him. He didn't have all the answers, and he wasn't sure he ever would. But in that moment, he realized that he couldn't ignore what was happening. He had to make a choice. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Jason admitted. I don't know if I can be the leader you need. Lyra's gaze softened. You don't have to be ready, Jason. No one ever is. It's not about being perfect. It's about doing what you can with what you have. Jason looked out over the alien landscape, the strange buildings and unfamiliar skies stretching out before him. For the first time, he felt a flicker of something other than fierce, something like purpose. It was small, but it was there. I'll try, he said quietly. I'll try to help. Lyra smiled, the warmth of her expression making him feel like he had made the right choice, even if he wasn't sure what that choice meant yet. That's all we can ask, Jason. We're in this together. The following weeks were filled with intense training. Jason's body began to adjust to the alien environment, growing stronger and more agile with each passing day. He learned the basics of combat, how to wield alien weapons, and how to navigate the strange cities and landscapes of this new world. But the most difficult part was learning to lead. Commander Drac and Lyra both pushed him to think strategically, to see the big picture. Jason struggled with this. He was used to working with his hands, fixing things, solving small problems. But this was different. This was about the survival of an entire world. He wasn't just fixing broken parts anymore. He was being asked to save a civilization. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy, but as time passed, Jason began to realize that he couldn't do it alone. He needed to rely on others, just as they needed to rely on him. One day, after a particularly grueling training session, Lyra took him aside and led him to a quiet room deep within the palace. The walls were covered in ancient symbols, and the air smelled faintly of incense. Jason, something I want to show you, Lyra said, her voice soft and serious. It's part of the prophecy. The last piece. Jason looked at her, confusion crossing his face. The last piece. What do you mean? Lyra smiled gently. The prophecy speaks of a bond, Jason. A bond between you and our ruler, Queen Seraphina. It said that the human who arrives will not only lead us, but will also form an unbreakable connection with the Queen. This bond will give you the juice strength to defeat our enemies. Jason felt a sudden knot form in his stomach. You mean I'm supposed to know? Lyra interrupted, her voice firm. It's not like that. The bond is about unity. You will become one with the people and the ruler. It's not in a way that you're thinking, but through mutual respect and understanding. You will lead together. Jason wasn't sure what to think. He had no idea how to form such a bond, especially with someone as powerful as Queen Seraphina. But he could see in Lyra's eyes that this was the key. The prophecy wasn't just about him. It was about all of them, working together to fight for their survival. As Jason left the room, the weight of the prophecy settled on his shoulders once again. He didn't know if he was ready, but one thing was certain. He couldn't turn back now. After days of grueling training, Jason was starting to feel the weight of his new life. The endless lessons in combat and leadership were taking their toll. But there was something deeper that made it all harder to bear. He wasn't just here to learn how to fight. He's here to lead, to unite, and to become the key to saving an entire world. The burden of the prophecy pressed down on him with every step. One afternoon, after a particularly tough training session, Jason found himself standing in front of a massive palace. The stone walls stretched up into the alien sky, and banners fluttered in the wind, bearing symbols Jason didn't understand. It was beautiful, though it felt a little overwhelming. The palace was nothing like anything he had ever seen on Earth. There was something ancient and powerful about it, and it was now his destination. Lyra had told him he needed to meet the Queen. This wasn't just another part of his training. It was something more significant. Jason wasn't sure what to expect from a queen, especially one from an alien world. But the nervousness in his chest told him this was a turning point. Today, he would meet the ruler of this strange world, the one who needed him most. As he entered the grand hall, the air seemed to hum with energy. Jason's eyes widened at the sight. The room was vast, with tall columns stretching toward the ceiling. Intricate patterns were carved into the walls, and soft glowing lights hovered like fireflies. Everything about the place seemed alive. full of history and power. Lyra was standing by his side, her eyes glowing softly as if she knew what he was feeling. "You're about to meet Queen Seraphina," she said, her voice calm but firm. "She is the leader of our people, and she has waited for you. You are the one who will help save us." Jason swallowed hard. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to be ready. You just need to be yourself. She will see your heart, your strength. That's all you need." Before Jason could respond, a figure stepped forward from the shadows. She was tall and regal, her presence commanding the room. Her skin shimmered in the light, a deep shade of violet that seemed to flow with an otherworldly beauty. Her hair was long and flowing, with strands that seemed to move with a life of their own, like they were dancing in an invisible breeze. Queen Seraphina. Her eyes met Jason's, and for a moment, everything else faded away. Her gaze was piercing, yet kind. There was an intensity in her eyes, but it wasn't harsh. It was full of purpose, a purpose that Jason could sense deep within him. "Jason," she said, her voice soft but powerful, "I've waited for this moment. We have waited for you." Jason felt a strange mix of awe and fear. He had imagined many things about meeting a queen, but nothing like this. Standing in front of Seraphina, he felt small and insignificant, in comparison to her regal beauty and power. "I didn't ask for this," Jason said, his voice trembling a little. "I don't know why I'm here. I'm not a king. I'm not a warrior. I'm just a guy from Earth." Seraphina stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "You are more than just a guy, Jason. You are the one we have been waiting for. The prophecy spoke of you, of the human who would come to lead us, and you will. We have the strength inside of you, even if you can't see it yet." Jason looked down, unsure of how to respond. How could he lead a whole world? He had spent his life fixing cars, not leading armies or nations. He wasn't the hero she seemed to think he was. Seraphina seemed to sense his doubts. She reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly gentle. "I know this is hard. The burden of the prophecy is not easy to bear. But you don't have to carry it alone. I will stand beside you, just as my people will. Together, we can defeat the enemy." Jason met her gaze again, and this time, something inside him stirred. Her words, though simple, carried weight. He could feel her sincerity, her belief in him. And for the first time since he had arrived on this strange planet, Jason realized that maybe, just maybe, he could do this. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I'll try. I'll do whatever it takes." Seraphina nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "That's all I ask, Jason. We will walk this path together." For a moment, there was a silence between them, filled only with the sounds of the distant winds and the soft hum of the palace. Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of what he had just agreed to. He was about to become part of something far bigger than himself. Odd. But despite his doubts, there was a spark of something inside him, a spark of hope. Maybe he wasn't just some mechanic from Earth. Maybe he was here for a reason. Seraphina turned and led him through the grand hall, her footsteps echoing in the silent space. As they walked, Jason couldn't help but notice the respect and admiration in the eyes of those they passed. The people here seemed to see something in him, something he couldn't yet understand. "We don't have much time," Seraphina said, her voice steady. "The enemy is growing stronger, and the war is closer than we ever imagined. But with you, Jason, I believe we have a chance. You will help us lead our forces, unite our people, and together we will fight back." Jason nodded, feeling a strange sense of purpose beginning to grow inside him. This wasn't just a dream. This wasn't just some fantasy. He was really here, and the fate of an entire world rested in his hands. And for the first time since he had arrived, Jason wasn't sure if he was ready, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't walk away now. He would have to fight for this world, for its people, and for the future that Seraphina and the others believed in. Jason's days in the alien world blurred together. He trained tirelessly with Commander Drac, learning the ways of combat, strategy, and survival. His muscles ached, and his mind struggled to keep up with the overwhelming amount of new knowledge. But there was something about the planet, something about the people, that was slowly changing him. He was no longer the mechanic who worked on cars back on Earth. He could feel it. Now this world was calling to him, awakening something inside of him. He had always been a man of small fixes, of solving mechanical problems, but now the stakes were higher. There was more to life than fixing engines. There was a purpose he had never imagined. Lyra was there every step of the way, guiding him. She taught him the language, the history of the planet, and the technology that had been lost over the centuries. It was overwhelming, but Jason was learning. Slowly, he began to feel a connection with this world, as if the land itself was feeding him strength. But it wasn't just the physical training, or the knowledge that was changing him. There was something deeper. His connection to the planet seemed to grow with each passing day. He felt the ground beneath his feet in a way he never had before. The sky above, the winds, the plants, everything felt alive, connected in a way he couldn't explain. One morning, after an intense training session, Jason found himself standing in a quiet garden, surrounded by strange flowers and plants that seemed to pulse with an energy of their own. The air was still, the only sound, the soft rustle of the leaves. Jason closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to center himself. He had been working so hard to understand this world, to understand the prophecy, and to become the leader they needed. But it felt like something was missing. Jason opened his eyes and saw Lyra approaching, her expression calm but serious. "What's wrong?" she asked. Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Lyra. I don't feel ready. I don't know if I can be the leader you all want me to be." Lyra stepped closer, her voice soft. "You don't have to be perfect, Jason. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to trust yourself. You're learning." "You're growing, I know," Jason said, his voice full of uncertainty. "But it feels like there's something inside me that I haven't unlocked yet. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I should be able to do more. I should be stronger." Lyra looked at him with understanding in her eyes. "You are stronger than you realize. But the strength you need isn't just physical. It's mental. And it's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you truly are." Jason shook his head. "But who am I really?" Lyra smiled gently. "That's something only you can answer." "Jason, the prophecy didn't just speak of a leader. It spoke of someone who would bring balance. You have the ability to lead, but you must learn to embrace all that you are, not just the parts you think are useful." Jason thought about her words, but they didn't bring him the clarity he hoped for. He had spent so long feeling ordinary, so long just trying to get by. Now, with the fate of a whole world on his shoulders, it felt impossible to be anything more than who he had always been. But as he stood there, looking at the vibrant garden around him, something began to stir deep inside him. The earth beneath his feet seemed to hum, a low vibration that resonated with his very being. It was as if the planet itself was speaking to him, urging him to listen, to understand. Suddenly, a rush of energy filled Jason's chest. It was overwhelming. At first, like a flood of power that surged through him. He staggered back, his hands pressing against his temples as his body felt like it was on fire. But the pain wasn't painful, it was awakening. His mind expanded, and in an instant, he understood things he hadn't before. The land, the people, the war, they were all connected. It wasn't just about fighting for victory. It was about understanding the planet, the balance of life, and the connection between all things. Jason felt a deep sense of clarity, like a fog lifting from his mind. He gasped, his breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. The energy within him began to calm, and he opened his eyes to find Lyra watching him with an expression of awe. "What just happened?" Jason asked, his voice breathless. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing with excitement. "You've unlocked it. The power of the planet is within you. You're connected to it now. You're more than just a leader. You're part of this world." Jason stood there, stunned, trying to comprehend what had just occurred. He had always felt out of place, like he didn't belong in this world. But now, it was different. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was part of something bigger. He was part of this planet, this battle, this fight for survival. "I can feel it," Jason said, his voice shaking with the weight of what had just happened. I can feel everything. The land, the people, it's all connected. Lyra nodded. You are ready now, Jason. You have unlocked the strength you need. You're not just the human the prophecy spoke of. You are the leader who will guide us to victory. Jason looked up at the sky, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. For the first time, he didn't feel afraid. He felt powerful, connected, and ready. It wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about balance, unity, and understanding. And now Jason knew what he had to do. Jason stood at the edge of the battlefield, the air thick with the scent of dust and smoke.
Out.
The ground beneath him vibrated from the heavy footsteps of the approaching enemy. His heart pounded in his chest as he stared out at the vast field where the fate of the planet would be decided. The time had come. This was no longer just about learning, training, or the prophecy. It was about survival. His people, the planet, everything was at risk. The forces of the enemy had arrived in full force, and the only thing standing between them and victory was Jason and his newfound power. He turned to face the army behind him. The soldiers, both alien and human, were lined up in rows, ready for battle.
Oh.
Their eyes were filled with determination, but Jason could see the fear in some of them. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, and fear of losing everything. You're ready, Jason? Lyra said, stepping beside him. Her voice was calm, but Jason could feel the tension in her words. She was as ready as she could be, but even she knew the stakes. I don't feel ready, Jason replied, his voice shaking slightly. I don't know what I'm doing. This is all happening too fast. Lyra placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You've already unlocked the power you need. You've trained. You know what to do? You don't have to do this alone. We're all here with you. Jason nodded, taking a deep breath. Couldn't back out now. There was no turning back. He had come this far, and now it was time to lead. The distant sound of horns echoed across the field, signaling the beginning of the attack. The enemy was drawing closer, their dark ships hovering ominously above the ground. Jason's heart skipped a beat, but he stood tall, forcing himself to focus. He had to be strong. For them. For everyone. Remember, Lyra said, her voice? Steady. Your connection to the planet, to us, is your greatest strength. Use it. Lead us to victory. Jason turned and looked at the soldiers, his people. They were ready, but they needed his leadership. They needed him to guide them, to show them that they could win. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about belief. They needed to believe that they could defeat the enemy. And he needed to believe in himself. The first wave of enemy soldiers charged forward, their weapons raised and ready. Jason's breath caught in his throat as the battle began, but he didn't hesitate. He raised his hand, signaling his forces to advance. Clash of weapons, the shouts of soldiers, and the roar of engines filled the air as the two sides collided. Jason's heart raced as he moved into the thick of the battle, his body reacting instinctively. The training, the power he had unlocked, it all came together in that moment. His body moved with precision, his mind clear and focused. He fought. With everything he had, but there was something more to it. It wasn't just physical strength that guided him. It was the energy of the planet, the life force that flowed through him and connected him to everyone around him. He could feel the ground beneath his feet, the air in his lungs, and the beating hearts of his soldiers. They were all in this together. Lyra fought beside him, her movements fluid and graceful. She was a skilled warrior, but even she knew the true power of the battle lay in Jason's hands. She trusted him completely, as did the others. The battle raged on, with both sides giving everything they had. But Jason's connection to the planet, to his people, was growing stronger with every passing moment. He could feel the tides of the battle shifting, the momentum slowly turning in their favor. Hours passed. The enemy forces began to retreat, their morale broken by the unyielding strength of Jason's army. It was clear that victory was within reach. But there was one final challenge, one last enemy commander who had remained hidden, waiting for the right moment to strike. Jason felt the energy in the air shift, a sudden coldness that made his skin prickle. He turned toward the source of the disturbance, And there, standing at the far edge of the battlefield, was the enemy leader, a tall, menacing figure cloaked in dark armor. The leader's eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and their presence was overwhelming. This was the final test. Jason's body tensed as he stepped forward, Lyra beside him. The battlefield fell silent as the two armies watched, waiting for the showdown that would determine the fate of the planet. "This is it," Jason said, his voice barely a whisper. He felt a mix of fear and resolve. He'd come so far, but this was the true test of everything he had learned, everything he had unlocked within himself. The enemy leader raised their weapon, a long dark blade that hummed with energy. Jason could feel the power radiating from it, a force that could destroy everything in its path. But he wasn't afraid anymore. He had the power of the planet, the belief of his people, and the strength of his heart. The leader charged forward, their blade raised high, and Jason met them in the center of the battlefield. The two clashed with a violent roar, their weapons colliding in a burst of energy.
Ow.
The ground shook beneath them as they fought, each blow sending shockwaves through the air. Jason could feel his strength waning, but he refused to give up. He called on the power of the planet, the energy that flowed through him, and in that moment, he felt it, the connection that bound him to everything. The ground beneath his feet, the soldiers at his side, the people he had come to care for, they were all with him. With one final surge of energy, Jason struck the enemy leader, knocking them to the ground. The battle was over. The enemy had been defeated. The planet was saved. Jason stood over the fallen enemy leader, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The cheers of his people echoed around him, but he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of peace. He had done it. It led them to victory. As Lyra walked up beside him, she smiled. "You did it, Jason. You've saved us all." Jason looked out over the battlefield, the sun rising in the distance. The war was over, and the world was at peace. But more than that, he had found his place. He had found his strength. He wasn't just a mechanic from Earth anymore. He was a leader, a hero, and a part of something much bigger than himself.